Hello, it's the end of 2022, and I'm wondering if we might have some new Ozeki on the horizon. Stop throw!
Throw the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo!
Hello and welcome back to the Dohyo here on MrJWags channel. We are here at the end of 2022, and unlike previous years where I have this large sort of omnibus, like giant episode of end of year review, we're going to split this one up into a few different smaller, bite-sized episodes. Well, maybe not bite-sized, but maybe just like one course at a time this year. And we also have an addendum to the Shadow of Hakuho, where we focus on Hakuho's late Kyujos and sort of see who was dominating at that time, both in the Shadow world and in the real Hakuho Kyujo universe. It's very chart heavy, and you are not going to want to miss that one. And as I mentioned in the Abi recap, and by the way, thank you all of you who have joined us since that episode. Very popular episode. Good on you guys. Welcome to all of the new people. Hope you stick around. But yes, as I mentioned in that episode and alluded that we would be talking to later, the difficulty of the year has been the disappointment of the top ranks. So we have a Yokozuna who we are not sure is going to be full strength next year. In fact, what I am hearing is that April Jungyo is the best case scenario to see him again, which means may return. We've already lost Ozeki Mitakeyumi. He's not Ozeki anymore. We have lost Mitakeyumi as an Ozeki. Shodai is not further behind at like Ozeki Wake. He needs 10 wins to get back up. I don't think he's going to do it. So right now, in our Ozeki and Yokozuna ranks, Takekeisho is the lone torch holder for just, I guess, average excellence at the top of the sumo ranks. So it seems as though we are at a point in sumo history where the bat signal has gone up, except the bat signal is an O, and we need more Ozeki. So we are updating our who will be our next Ozeki rankings. Now, some of you may wonder why I don't do a who's our next Yokozuna rankings. Well, because in the past few years it would have just been Takekeisho. Because none of the other Ozeki we have had has even come close to a Yokozuna promotion, except for Terano Fuji, who did it so quickly he would have done it probably like in between the rankings would have been, so I wouldn't have had a chance to even put him on the rankings. Terano Fuji was amazing and dominant, and we love him and miss him. So what we're looking for here is someone who can meet the Ozeki standard, which is nominally 33 wins over 3 Basho in the Sanyaku, but of course, as I've mentioned multiple times on this channel, that can be fungible. But yes, these rankings are not a global ranking of sumo, they're only sort of through the next 9 Basho, through Nagoya 24, who I think has the best chance to be named our next Ozeki. So we seem to have a lot of people who are sort of in the waiting room area of the Sanyaku. And we're going to talk about all of the contenders, at least in my opinion, very soon. But the real question is, who's going to make the leap? So what does making the leap mean? It means a sudden improvement as viewed through the lens of the aging curve. Now let's talk about the aging curve. Athletes who are lucky enough to go through the complete beginning, middle, and life cycle of their profession tend to sort of go out in 5 ages. And let me tell you, these are generalizations. I'm giving age ranges, and I don't mean that every person who goes through this exact same age range. No, what I'm saying is every Rikishi who goes through the full aging curve goes through every one of these points, and about 95% of them, that point takes place in this age range. But there are error bars all over the place, so caution given. A lot of Rikishi start in professional sumo when they are still teens, under 20. They are still growing. They are still figuring out their sumo. It's harder to put on weight when you're growing that fast. You see some people who are still like in their teens making it to Makuuchi and doing really well. People like Atami Fuji, Kisen Osato, I think made Sanyaku when he was a teen. Generally, their bodies tend to be outpacing the rest of their sumo. So people who have sumo-sized bodies in their teens can possibly make it to there. The second stage of the journey would be the young hotness, sort of between 20-24. This is where we take another step forward in the young Rikishi figuring out what their adult body is going to be. Then we have your peak, sort of from 25 to 28. It's where your physical prowess has sort of peaked and plateaued, but you are starting to get the extra sort of bonus of experience. And that is starting to happen from like 5 to 10 years from the start of your sumo journey, depending on whether or not you fought at university. You start getting those extra sort of veteran wins that you wouldn't have gotten in your early 20s, while still getting the advantage of the young, perfect body. Stage 4 would be the veteran. That's from like about 29 to 33. It's where the experience keeps growing, but it keeps growing at a slower rate than aging and injury are taking a toll. You rarely see people making a leap in their veteran stage, but you often see them sort of holding rank or holding in sort of an area of ranks, like a certain group of people in our low Maegashira we are going to talk about in the tiers episode. And stage 5. Uncle Sumo. If you are still on the Makuuchi Banzake and you are 34, like, first of all, salute, good on you, but you are generally, Tamawashi accepted, not fighting for the Yusho unless you are already an Ozeki or a Yokozuna. These are the guys who have the battle scars to prove years and years of Makuuchi experience, and they are here to win with guts and guile, and to stick around the salaried ranks as long as they can. Well, as John Gunning has explained to us, sumo has sort of a tripod or a triangle of how you succeed at sumo. It is about having the sumo head, the brains to do your sumo, the heart, the soul, the hakioi spirit behind it, and I guess the hands or the body, the sumo physicality to be able to execute your sumo. You need all three of those to be able to fully execute your brand of sumo successfully at the top levels. So how does one necessarily take a leap in one's heart? Well, I guess that's sort of like it's a personal thing. You have your Dumbo magic feather, your Luke use the force, greatest showman, sing a song. It's that one where you need to sort of figure out for yourself if you're going to take the leap through your sumo soul, because I don't know how you would measure that on the show like this. But the benefit of a change of heart is that it can happen at any age. Wow, that felt like a Spielberg trailer. Now, your sumo smarts can improve in several ways. You can improve your own sumo generally, just being able to work out, figure out the limits of your body, the positives of your own sumo, and figure out how to generally improve your sumo. And then, you have a way to specifically improve your sumo against individual wrestlers through the experience of that. And unlike the heart, as we talked about, that one tends to correlate positively with age all the way. And then we have the body. Now the body improves from teen to young hotness, and from young hotness to peak, but then we hit the plateau. So, when we're talking about someone being able to make the leap, we are probably not talking about someone in their late 20s, if we're talking about making the leap physically, while that person might still be able to make a leap in their sumo mentality, or their sumo soul. Alright, we cool on the leap? Alright, so some people who are not on the list this time, who were on the list last time. The field below mid-Juryo. Alright, so I was very excited about the Juryo field last time, and I'm still very excited about the Juryo field. But if we're looking through recent history, Terunofuji I'm going to sort of hold out as sort of the paragon of someone leaping through the lower ranks and getting to the higher ranks with the quickness. Now, it took Terunofuji 7 Basho to get through Juryo all the way to Ozeki. Now, of the current young hotness in the Juryo ranks, I like a lot of them. We are going to be talking a lot about them in the coming year, but I don't think any of them is going to get up to Ozeki in 9 ranks. I think if any of those had that sort of a lightning strike capability, we would have seen it by now. So I think their Ozeki run is probably 2025. Also on the list, Takanosho. Takanosho was a bit of a disappointment this year. Last year he had done so well, he had hung out in the Sanyaku, and this year it feels like the injuries that we had been fearing had been sort of catching up to him, finally had. He started the year strong at Sekiwake, had a couple Makekoshi, then from Maegashira 4 ended up having a Junyu show, and then having a real bad end of the year. Ended up getting hurt and has sort of been holding rank at sort of the Maegashira 9-10 line since then. I'm not willing to put like a complete like stamp on the end of Takanosho's career, but just in the past 3 tournaments, I do not see him as one of our best and brightest to make Ozeki in the next 9 tournaments. No longer on the list this time, Daisho. Daisho seems to have fallen into the pattern that like Aoyama and several other people have fallen into of having one amazing Basho a year and then being sort of mediocre for the rest of the year. He's a little bit past his peak, just turned 29, so I don't think Daisho is going to make another run. I would be very surprised if he got another Yusho. I mean, but then again, I was very surprised at the Tamawashi's second and his first, and Abi, so there you go. Also falling off the list, Ichinojo. Last time I did these rankings, Ichinojo was coming off of a COVID Kyujo. I'm like, wouldn't it be weird if he ended up coming off this COVID Kyujo and won Yusho, and then he did, and everything ended up great for him after that. Of course, no, a lot of bad reports have been coming out. Apparently, Ichinojo has a bit of a drinking problem. There have been incidences of violence in his stable. I'm not going to be going into intense amounts of detail about it. This is not that kind of channel. The stuff is out there if you want to find it, but I don't think Ichinojo is in a headspace to be making an Ozeki run in the next year and a half, assuming he is still in organized sumo by then. Well, first on the list, he was off the list last time, but he's on it this time. Asanoyama. Okay, so we said the young hotness in Juryo probably wasn't going to be able to get to Ozeki in 9 Basho. Asanoyama might. We said Terunofuji, it took him 7. Can Asanoyama do it in just like 2 extra? Maybe. The Banzuke is a bit pillowy soft, and I do not think he has been pushed as hard in the past year of like COVID corner that he has been forced into, as he would have been doing a regular Makuuchi schedule. So the miles are a little low on him. I think now may be a good time to buy low on Asanoyama. He's still only 28. He turns 29 in March. He has enough left of his peak, I think, to make one more solid run at Ozeki, if not Yokozuna. Number 6, Kota Nawaka. Now, Kota Nawaka spent most of the year recovering his rank from that elbow injury he had the first time he made it into the Joy last year, but this year he had an amazing tournament, and in fact, I'm very surprised he wasn't able to make it up to the Sanyaku. Now, he had that one tournament where he went COVID Kyujo against his will. He was just about to get Kachi Koshi. In fact, he was up, if he wasn't on the leaderboard, he was like 1 or 2 off the lead. He was still in the championship hunt. Had to go COVID Kyujo. It was heartbreaking. And since then, he hasn't quite lived up to the promise at the beginning of the year, and thus has not yet made Sanyaku. So, he's a little lower than I'd like him to be right now, primarily because he hasn't yet started anything from the Sanyaku. And they can be a bit of a stickler about that when it comes to promotion time. But yes, he's basically had 4 Kachi Koshi in the Joy back to back to back to back. He just hasn't had a chance to get back up to the Sanyaku because we've been having the 10-person Sanyaku Mega Komasubi remix we've been having. He's got a lot going for him. He's still very young, only turned 25. Still has relatively few miles, a couple like ouchies and owies in the past few years, but still, I'd put very good odds on him making Ozeki in the next 9 Basho. Number 5, Kiribayama. It's weird because Kiribayama has had generally a very, very good year, and he's dropped down in the Ozeki rankings, so has Kota Nawaka, since the last time we did them. He started out the year with a Makekoshi, but since then has been playing the game real well, has been getting the Kachi Koshi, got a couple of the double-digit wins, very impressive, but as of recently hasn't been able to find the double-digit wins again. So, are we wondering, is this a plateau or not? The only reason I haven't ranked currently above Kota Nawaka is that he's currently in the Sanyaku, so if he goes nuts for 2 straight tournaments, bam, bam, he's already up at Ozeki. There's no worry about it. He's already up in the Sanyaku. Now, Kiribayama's only 26, still working his way into his peak body, so he could still make a jump in the next year. Alright, 4 was a bit of a surprise, I think, to everyone. Abi. Okay, so he started the year at Sanyaku. We thought that, alright, what's he going to do up there? And he was setting sort of a standard sort of basho of, I'm going to hang out in the lower Sanyaku and get 7 or 8 wins. Then he ended up going Kyujo, not COVID Kyujo, tumbling down the Banzuke, and then he ended up getting another 12-3. But this time, instead of 12-3 getting him the Jun Yusho, like it did last time he was coming up the Banzuke, it ended up getting him the Yusho. What? So the question is, has Abi actually made a jump in his sumo, or did he just get lucky and able to bank a whole bunch of extra wins in the last tournament because he was ranked so low? Now, I talked about this in the last episode. I mean, Abi beat everyone I needed him to beat in terms of the contenders for the Yusho, so I believe he earned that Yusho, honestly. Could he have possibly made a mental leap? No one would have ever accused young Abi of being too mentally focused on his game. Have we reached the point where his mental game has started to reach the same level as his physical gifts? Much will depend on where Abi is ranked in the next tournament, and if he can make it all the way from Maegashira 9 up into the Sanyaku. I don't think he has officially started the Ozeki run quite yet, in case any of you were wondering why I was underranking the defending champion. Number 3, Sekiwake Takakage. Now, he's one of the few people who ended up getting Kachikoshi every single tournament this year, and he got all of them up in the Joy and the Sanyaku, and 2 of them were double-digit wins. He just can't seem to get them sort of next to each other. He ended up getting the March Yusho, so we're all like, yeah, Ozeki run, and then 9 wins, 8 wins, and the 9 wins also had like a Fusen in there, so like, okay. And then like, hey, 11 wins, like, yeah, Ozeki run, Hikabik. And then this past tournament, no, it's just an 8. So what seems to be happening is Wakatakakage has found his natural talent level, and it seems to be he belongs in the Sanyaku, but his ceiling seems to be 11 to 12 wins, and unfortunately, he's going to need to, like, live there for half of a year to get Ozeki. Does he have enough room in terms of his growth yet to still get that? He's a little bit on the small side for a Rikishi, and he's probably hit his peak physically. He just turned 28, like, just turned 28. So he's still got a few more years of that peak ahead of him, but is that peak going to be good enough to get him to the scores that we need to get Ozeki? Now, 2 is a bit of an interesting one, because 2 I didn't even have on my rankings before, but he seemed to have fought his way back into contention a number of times this year. So, number 2 is Takayasu. Alright, so he has earned his way back into Ozeki competition, because people have been talking about Wakatakakage and Hoshoryu, but really, if we look at it right now, the best person over the last 2 tournaments has been Takayasu. I mean, this year he had 2 COVID Kyujo, 1 6 and 9, and then 2 12s and an 11, all of those which were June Yusho. The question is, does his 32-year-old, going to be 33 in March, year-old body have enough gas left in it to be able to get another Ozeki run out of it? Now, the big question for his potential Ozeki run is, do we count Maegashira 4 as a legitimate place to start an Ozeki run? Because he was at Maegashira 4, he got kind of blocked up, couldn't quite make it up to Komusubi. Again, we have a huge Sanyaku right now. So he's definitely going to be up in the Sanyaku next tournament. Would these 2 already count? And if they do, how much is he going to need to get back to Ozeki? Will he need the Yusho, or would another 12 and 3 June Yusho be enough? I mean, the Ozeki core is looking real thin right now. And number 1, you've probably guessed it, Sekiwake Hoshoryu. He's just been working his way slowly up the Banzage since he has entered sumo. He's been learning a little bit at a time, making these tiny little leaps as he goes, and I think this last tournament may have been another little mini jump for him in his career. He spent most of the entire year up at Sanyaku, got Kachikoshi all year. Again, very, very hard to do at this level. He's right now at 19 wins over 2 tournaments. The next tournament, obviously, if he busted out, got a 14 win, I think they'd definitely consider it. But he's still young enough to be able to take one more leap physically, and I think once he does that, we are going to see the true potential of this very young and exciting Rikishi. And I think next year will be his Ozeki run. So Hoshoryu, get out there and earn your Great Barrier status. Alright, thank you for joining us here on the Dohyo. Stay tuned for the rest of our awesome Year in Sumo review. As I said, we have an addendum to the Shadow of Hakuho talking about the recent Ozeki's Ozeki run correlated with Hakuho's Kyujo. Chart-heavy episode. All the stat nerds gonna want to stay tuned for that one. We're also doing our year-end sumo rankings, the charts of my tiers. They're coming back. And we also have our full year-end episode where we decide whose year it was in sumo. And of course, next year, predictions, all that amazing, amazing stuff. So you're going to want to come back for that. So everyone, stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.